Hello and welcome to Jackson's Job. Today we're going to make a batter bread. This is a really easy, no knead, one rise method. It is a really simple recipe to do and it doesn't take a lot of time or effort. You don't even need a stand mixer, you can do this all by hand. Here are the ingredients you'll need if you want to follow along. Since this is a high hydration rate bread, you're going to need something to contain the dough as it rises or it'll just flatten out. You can use a 4, 6, 8, or 9-inch greased pan. That's 10, 15, 20, or 23 centimeters. Now you will either need 1 8 or 9-inch pan, 2 6-inch pans, or 4 4-inch pans. What I'm using in this particular recipe is 2 6-inch pans, which is 15 centimeters. And I have sprayed this. You can grease and flour it, but I'm just using cooking spray. Then you want to spray generously a piece of saran wrap or use another pan to put on top of it so it can rise. The next step you want to do is take 1 teaspoon of cornmeal, that's 2 grams, and sprinkle it throughout the bottom of the pan. This is not necessary, it just helps it release and it gives a little crunch on the bottom. If you don't have cornmeal, completely skip this step, just make sure you greased really well. You want a half a cup, 120 milliliters of warmed milk, about 110 degrees Fahrenheit, that's about 43 degrees Celsius. To that we're going to add 1/3 cup of water, 80 milliliters, 1½ teaspoons of yeast, 5 grams, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 2.5 grams, and 1/8 teaspoon of baking soda, 0.75 grams. The baking soda will help brown the bread without needing sugar. Next, we're going to dump in 1½ cups of flour, that's 225 grams. Now for me, my cups always weigh 150 grams because I do not pre-sift my flour and that's how it comes out into my measuring cup. That's why mine differs from other people's recipes. Then you're going to stir this with the back of a spoon 100 times. Sounds like a lot, you might not need to do it that much. You just want to do it until it's well hydrated and you don't see any flour bits. You can also do this in a stand mixer. You just put all the ingredients in at once and you let it mix for a good 2 minutes. Next, I'm going to divide this equally among 2 pans. If you don't have a scale, you might want to invest in it if you really want to start bread baking. And if you do not have a scale right now, I'm not going to give you a hard time. Just try to eyeball it and make it as even as possible. If you are using an 8-inch or a 9-inch pan, obviously you put the entire amount of dough inside that pan. You now want to cover this either with well greased, well sprayed saran wrap or another pan. Now if you have another pan, I recommend going that route because the saran wrap sometimes will stick to the top of the bread and it can collapse. You want to let this rest until it at least fills out the pan and is nearly double in size. If you really want to push it, you can wait until it starts to rise almost to the top of the pan and you'll get a really nice loaf. But you don't want to go too far because it will collapse on you when you go to transfer it in the oven and then you have to wait for it to rise again. That's the nature of this bread, but once you get the hang of it, it's a really fun bread to make and you'll find yourself making it all the time. You want to let this rise 1 to 2 hours and after about 45 minutes, preheat your oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit or 190 degrees Celsius. Let's look at this saran wrap. You have to pull it back really gently, and if it starts to stick to anything, you want to kind of tease it off there the best you can. And I will tell you, it might collapse on you at this point. If it does collapse, just recover it after you generously spray this again, and then just let it sit for another 20 minutes and it will re-rise. Now bake this 20 to 25 minutes or until the top is a nice golden brown and it starts to separate from the sides. You want to be really careful here and immediately tip out the bread and let it finish cooling for at least 1 hour before you slice into it. If you slice into it earlier than that, it will taste really wet and gummy because the crumb structure is so hydrated that it has nowhere to go and it just isn't very good. So let it cool for 1 hour. I know it's difficult to wait because it smells wonderful right now. Now let's just cut into this so you can see what the bread will look like. It is a very cool texture. I absolutely love this bread and I'm telling you, I make it all the time because you don't have to knead it. You don't have to pull out a stand mixer. You don't have to do any hard work. You just stir it up with a spoon until you don't see any flour anymore. You dump it in a pan and then you bake it after it's risen a little bit. What could be more easy than that? I hope you enjoyed this recipe. Thank you for watching and as always, happy baking.